My name is Amanda Murphy. This is my 7 questions reflection for EDC 531. Prior to coming to the Summer Institute in Digital Literacy, my understanding of digital literacy was limited. I considered myself tech savvy. I knew how to turn on a computer, use a cell phone, could search through Facebook, and I knew that the concepts of these technologies and things like digital textbooks, tools, and applications were being used to engage 21st century learners all across my high school, and even in my classroom, perhaps. I came with the hope that I would learn how to more purposefully integrate technology into my classroom, but wasn't sure what that really entailed. I looked at digital literacy with a very narrow scope when entering the week. Instantly, this scope was broadened during the welcome night and the conversation of types of literacies. It opened my mind to the concept of new literacies and the study of digital literacy to engage our learners in their ever-evolving world. The idea that literacy is so much more than the written text began my journey of the week. I then began to question my own practice as to how I could use these new mediums into my classroom to then engage students. As I questioned my practice, Jill Kastick and Julie Coiro clearly presented the connections between inquiry-based learning and digital literacy. They presented the concept that through a compelling question, students can read, reflect, communicate, collaborate, and take action to navigate through that original question. Their examples of inquiry projects, as well as the forms of inquiry, provided a framework for planning instruction with students. To further my understanding, Rhys Stonick and Renee Hobbs spoke to media literacy understanding and true tech integration. The most crucial piece of digital literacy I gathered was not about the technology, but rather the technology as a means of discussion that leads to human interaction. Through the media literacy smartphone exercise, the conversation among my group members in relation to the video we watched engaged us in the content and learning through the technology. What tied the inquiry discussion and digital literacy framework together was when I attended Dave Quinn's Hot Topic on Connected Learning. It clearly showed how technology can help learners make connections with others to learn, share, grow, and empower. This presentation made the 2 keynote presentations from day 1 and 2 most applicable. Dave made a statement that for connected learning to make sense, teachers and students need to look at what is happening beyond the technology, and that human interaction is vital to the inquiry cycle and digital literacy. As the week rolled on, I began to question the implications of digital literacy in my academic content. The expectation of an authentic design studio project, applying new perspectives on digital literacy and incorporating tech tools into the lesson, allowed me to practically apply these skills into something specific to my academic content. Digital literacy is a perfect fit for both academic areas that I live in, as a social studies teacher teaching civics and the senior project coordinator. Because the world is in perpetual motion, civics is best taught through current events, media reporting, analysis of their bias, historical implications that are being played out on the world stage. The digital media and literacy smartphone and critical thinking questions allow for the deep analysis of what students are witnessing each day. In social studies, for example, students can look at the text in all forms, critically analyze these texts, and evaluate major world conflicts, but they can go beyond that. They can make connections through social media platforms, through curation tools, through other digital literacy concepts and tools to begin to understand how what is happening in the world applies to them. In the senior project world, I believe that digital literacy can create student researchers who share their unique tapestry of information to tell their story, a story of a topic that they're personally interested and invested in. The collecting, sharing, and collaboration of research through tools like BlendSpace, Symbaloo, Scoopit, even Pinterest, allows for more authentic research and student investment. Students become the expert on their senior projects and are able to share their research with the world. One consideration teachers must make is the affordances of the digital tools and texts in their classroom. Joyce Valenza's keynote and subsequent hot topic session spoke of the affordances. Honestly, I never thought of affordances before being at the Digital Institute. But affordances, as I came to understand it, was the relationship and use between a tool and the individual person. For example, a post-it note may on the surface be just a place to write grocery lists. However, when questioned, the tool may provide multiple other uses. With this, teachers must be conscious of the meaningful and purposeful use of digital media and tools into their curriculum. They should never be used as an add-on or a wow factor. The most important consideration must be that the tool lends itself to continue conversations, that there has to be time away from the tech in order to strengthen comprehension, analysis, and implications of these digital texts. In my world as a senior project coordinator at Westerly High School, one component of digital literacy that I will employ in my practice will be more collaboration and sharing. Joyce talked about the importance of sharing in our connected world. Our web platform at Westerly High School is very flat and does not allow for others to collaborate or contribute within a web page. Through a wiki space as a container, I plan to create one location for information for parents to access, students, colleagues, and the community. But it will also be a place for teachers who support the senior project through the English and civics courses to contribute the work their students are sharing or the research they're working through. And I envision it will be a hub of student sharing and research projects and their accomplishments. I plan to have all individual student project websites linked to this wiki space so the learning process and product and research is transparent for all. Of the course readings, there were several takeaways that I had from each cluster. Digital literacy and context provided me with a great understanding of what digital literacy means today and what we need to do in order to take action and evolve as an educational system for our new 21st century learners. One of the aspects that I thought was very interesting from the readings revolving with digital literacy and context was that a positive digital footprint can give students an opportunity to grow, to learn, to share, and to feel empowered. The other piece, through the poem, the spoken word poem, that I thought was very interesting was that digital literacy incorporates FaceTime, not just the app, the FaceTime. It provided me with a deeper understanding of what we need to do and where we need to be as our students change from passive learners to active learners in our current society. In the second grouping, generating questions, I found that an essential question can really drive instruction. Although I knew that, one of the concepts in the readings talked about how students need to really be taught how to critically question content. That a question-centered classroom can allow students to dig deeper, but in order to have that question-centered classroom, teachers need to provide a safe environment that will not frustrate students through questioning, but will allow that questioning growth throughout the year. Questioning links right back to the conversation that Julie and Jill had in terms of inquiry. And so through these readings, I felt like I gained a deeper understanding of how questioning can really drive the instruction and how it's not always about the answer. One key component that I felt from the generating questions readings that I think applies today, and as I think of some colleagues, the idea that as a teacher we need to step back and we need to allow student inquiry, student wonder to grow, that we need to kind of plant the seed to get students to think beyond what the answer is and think beyond the initial question and dig deeper. Students might interpret the question in multiple ways. For example, if I were to ask a class, how far is it from Providence to Los Angeles? One student may look and jump on their iPhone to find Google Maps and calculate the distance from Providence to Los Angeles. Another student may actually look and see how far, time-wise, it takes to go from Providence to Los Angeles. And another student might take it even further and think about how far, culturally, people from Providence, their mindset is to those from in Los Angeles. So the question aspect, by leaving it sort of open-ended, allows students the opportunity to interpret it in different ways, come to multiple answers, and look at the content from different angles. These readings helped me better understand how to use questions more purposefully in my classroom and how technology can help us not only to get answers, but to provide more questioning. The instructional strategy strand of readings talked about the relationship between the teacher and librarian, also curation as a tool to help students tell stories, and improvement in student literacy skills. I find that through the reading, when I was reading the relationship between the teacher, librarian, that it was an interesting approach as a partnership between the two. Often, at least where I teach, the library is a place where there's quiet study, silent research that lacks collaboration. Through this reading, I came to understand how the teacher and the librarian should work together to foster this research. That the librarian needs to be the expert in finding the access and providing opportunities for students to become independent researchers, and the teacher, as an expert in the content, should help guide through that angle. Curation is one of the ways that librarians can help foster independent student researchers, how students can now become the experts in topics through curating sources. Curation not only provides students an opportunity for a place to gather their sources, but it helps students start to begin that analysis of sources. That curation isn't just gathering a bunch of sources about a specific topic, but students have to start looking at those sources from multiple angles to see, is it worth it? Is it truly linked to the topic that I'm interested in? Is are there more valuable sources that can be provided, and students can share their curated materials with others through sites like Scoop.it or Pinterest. One other takeaway that I had from this strand of readings in terms of instructional strategies is the idea that literacy skills across the board are varied, and that we have to nurture initial literacy skills in order for these new learning environments to function. So for teachers, we really need to hone in on how we can apply new literacies and digital literacy to foster and even strengthen traditional literacy. Finally, we read next steps. And these were the recommendations of what needs to take place in schools and communities and within the government in order to shift to a digitally literate society, in order for us to teach our students in today's society. And so the biggest piece that I learned from this document was that schools in all capacities need to get on board. I found the reading and the research and insights, along with the recommendations that were made, to be very insightful. One piece that I really appreciated from the reading and from the recommendations that the organization put forward was that it's the responsibility of parents and teachers to help students integrate with learning and through different networks. Another piece that I thought interesting was that they talked about the need for infrastructure to provide our new learners a true student-centered environment and opportunities for schools to work within and through this new student-centered environment. And so taking into account that tech integration doesn't just mean purchasing computers, that tech integration means educating others on how to purposefully use the technology in classrooms. It also means providing opportunities for students who bring their own technology to access all that they can in order to be more digitally literate. One other aspect of the research and some recommendations was this shift from technology and the fear of technology, that students may be harmed, information exposed, this fear of technology, into a more positive approach, that digital literacy and technology has to be taught in an environment through teachers and with parents and other members of the community as to what is appropriate use, what is safe use, and that through this safe use, technology can be ingrained in us for learning, teaching, sharing, etc. Through the Aspen Institute's recommendations and their research, one of the biggest connections that I felt I can make within my own classroom was through this quote: "Our learning environments need to match the speed and degree of change happening in the world around us," from page 27. It's in reference to Douglas Thomas and John C. Lee Brown, their conversation of what we need to do in schools and what needs to take place in order to keep up. And I feel as though the Summer Institute in Digital Literacy afforded me the opportunity to keep up, to start to accelerate into a new world, and to begin to think through my lessons and my planning and incorporate all that is happening around us and the change that's happening both in education, with our learners, and in the world, and new media and literacies will help me to adapt to the change in our world and with our learners. Finally, some thoughts that I had through after a week's worth of learning and exploring and playing and discussing left me with some questions. One of the big ones is curation. I've started to play around and share with Scoop It, creating a Pinterest account, and also through my design studio project using Blend Space to curate all of the materials that I would need for one unit. But there's so much more to learn, and I have a deep interest in understanding how to apply curation both as an educator in my practice, but also to teach students to become their own curators of information. And I'm hoping that through exploration of the topic, collaboration with my colleagues, and conversations with students, I'll be able to guide them through the curation process so that they can become sharers in the world and that they can start to curate their information, especially in relationship to the senior project and the research paper that they write, as well as the research that they have to do for the actual product. They'll be able to share their research and showcase that, ultimately presenting the world with a positive digital footprint of themselves. The other piece that I hope to leverage through the personal learning network concept is to use Twitter in a more collegial way, and to use Twitter to help share information and gather information for my class and for my students. Finally, there was some conversation throughout the Institute about keeping and sharing blog posts. And so I hope to start a WordPress or blog in relationship to Senior Project, and to be able to share that blog about student learning, growth and research, interesting topics, projects that are coming from Westerly High School and my students. I hope to be able to share that through a blog post that I'll then have linked to a wiki page, which will be positive information to put out to our community, my colleagues, and especially to parents. They can learn a little bit about what their own children are doing in relationship to Senior Project, but also what other students are creating. Finally, I would like to just take this opportunity to thank Renee and Julie for the creation of the Institute, and also for allowing me to jump in through the graduate course. My excitement through the Summer Institute in Technology, Digital Literacy, was heightened when I got accepted, and it's even more so now that I know so much more about digital literacy, and I can't wait to learn more and share more with my colleagues.